right now, particularly with the pandemic, lots of people, I'm sure as yourself, we're doing, having conversations on Zoom, we're having presentations, we're having formal meetings.
Right.
Quite different than being in person.
True.
So how does that affect just our body language and our gestures? Should we be doing more because we're online?
No.
Or should we be doing, what should we do?
Because
we want to still maintain that connection and that authenticity of, of this real connection. But how do we do that when we're across, from each other on a screen?
Even on a video. I'm so glad you asked me that, because it is something we can address, because you still want to come across as almost that you're in person with that other individual, even though you're on a virtual screen. And when all of this happened, when COVID started, it was March of 2020, I thought, well, how will people use body language? And then I realized you almost have to use it a little bit better now, because everything is magnified and you're still having to make yourself as personal as you used to be. So it had said in the research last March that it was taking 2 weeks of virtual conversations to be as socially grounded as one handshake used to give us. So when you first greet someone, you could shake their hand and you could kind of feel them out, were they wanting to be more powerful than you or not? But you can't do that connection anymore. You could not at that time. So that's when we started, researching and putting everything together. And I would, years and years ago, I prepared TV anchors to work on TV. So it's the same way, the things that we were teaching people to work on TV with their mannerisms are the same things that I now teach people to use on virtual screens. So one thing that I always teach them is that you must at times show your hands, because people trust you faster when they can see a few hand motions from you. Always. Whether it's that you kind of bring your hand up and then you never want to have crazy hands, but you can gesture with them really well. You can show size, you can count, and it's now better to gesture on the side of your face on a virtual screen than in front, because if I gesture in front, my hand looks really a lot bigger than my face. So if I'm counting, this is a good way counting, or showing size, or this is kind of like bringing people together. So you're going to have to some kind of way show your hands. If you have the screen maybe push back here, you can do the steeple, which steepling is always going to be a gesture of confidence. You can do what we teach now is making an imaginary basketball. If I'm talking with you and I'm doing this, it's almost as though I'm saying I have this information in the ball of my hands and I will gladly pass it on to you. It's like I want to get you on my team. You see, that's kind of what we're saying. And in hands, in which you did so well, upward facing palms are always meaning acceptance. In body language, if not, this is pleading, if they're, but 45-degree angle like this, like I'm talking to you when I'm saying, I'm trying to bring you into my conversation. So upward facing palms are accepting, downward facing palms are controlling. So on a virtual screen, though, I don't think they would see you do this, but in a business meeting, if you need to control the meeting, you talk like this, and you put your hands kind of facing downward. So people have to realize that you need to show your hands a bit, never crazy hands, and you cannot gesture, though, at the truth plane, because they almost cannot see here, so you're kind of gesturing here. But on these virtual screens, it's maybe better to gesture here because you want to get your audience kind of excited. And the thing that you have to work with on the screen is this little bitty face. Because there's only 7 universal facial expressions, happiness, sadness, the whole bit throughout the world. Doesn't matter, like when you took your trip to Africa, even if you could not speak their language, you could read their faces, correct? So there's a smile, and there's a genuine smile, there's a fake smile. A genuine smile is when the eyes, so the genuine smile involves the whole face. The eyes kind of crinkle here. A fake smile is just like this. Right. So when people were wearing masks all the time, I did get calls. They said, how can you read someone's facial expressions? But I said, a lot of your facial expressions are going to be from here up. And all our years we've gone to doctors, and doctors wore a face mask, and we surely could tell when they were angry with us, could we not? So it's kind of the same way here. So when you're in these virtual meetings, though, you must think about your facial expressions, and if you have a twitch or something, it's going to be magnified. And if you do this, and if you do this, those are all going to show.
Everything you're doing now. Because you only have just from here up.
Right, and you do this really well. You nod your head when I'm talking, which is, it means acknowledgement. And on the virtual calls, you have to do that because it's letting someone know, oh, keep talking, I'm right there and I'm listening to you. So during a virtual conversation, or even person, 2 head nods say, okay, I'm with you, girl. 3 head nods say, I'd like you to be quiet now because I want to talk. So look, no, like this, it's true. If I have something to say, I'm like, okay, Clorinda, let me talk now. But so do it, my turn. So you can do it 3 times. So let me quit head nodding. Am I head nodding too much right now? And then another thing, and you do it often too, is just a tilt of the head. A tilt of the head shows interest.
Yeah.
So when you're on a virtual screen, I would say those definite 3 things. You want to smile every now and then. So just smile.
So we want to. So let's clarify this. One more thing before we clarify. How far back should we be from the screen, or how far up should we be?
I think you need to show this.
Yeah.
Unless you're teaching a point that you want to come in. Because in body language, we normally lean towards things we like and lean away from things that we're afraid of.
Yeah.
So you never want to be like this. You look too relaxed. You want to be.
Because I've been on calls where, with some people, I felt like they were just way too far back. And it felt like we didn't have a connection. I was like, hey, can you come up a little bit? One person felt way too far back. Another person was like right on the screen. I'm like, hey, can you back up? I'm a little weirded out.
I think the rule is that your face should take up 1/3 of the screen.
Okay.
So I don't know how that would figure out, but about 1/3. So you don't want to just be a head. And 2, what I found is working better is that you don't want to be all closed up.
Yeah.
You want to have, because if you show this ventral part of yourself, you look more open to them on a screen.
Right.
And it's a small little thing.
Yeah.
It's like in a courtroom, we'll make an attorney unbutton his jacket when he comes to talk to the jury, just so that he looks more open to them.
Yeah.
So it would be better if they had some kind of, you don't want to show cleavage, but if you have some kind of openness, you look like you're more open and you're friendly.
We're not trying to show all the tatas. We just want to show a little bit, just
a little bit of the
neckline.
neckline. And okay, so you do the review for me.
Okay.
So you said.
So we want to make sure that on occasion we're using proper hand gestures that are visible. We want to make sure that we are giving a little bit of nod to acknowledge that I hear you.
Yes.
2 nods, like okay, I hear you. 3 nods is okay. Shut up. You're doing too much.
Yeah.
We want to show a little bit of just our neckline to show that we're open.
A V shape is working best right now on the virtual screens. Okay.
We want to make sure that we have a proper hand. We don't want to just be a big potato head.
Right.
And we don't want to be way too far back.
And a tilt.
And a little tilt.
A little tilt. Yeah, a little tilt. When you have a commonality, I wanted to mention the word commonality, to kind of win someone over during a virtual call, you make some niceties at first, is to kind of try to get 2 commonalities with them. They might say, it's really warm here in Houston today, and so the person would say, yeah, and it's warm here. How do you like hot weather? So the more commonalities that you can get them to say, yes, 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 then you're on your way to success. The moment you get a no from them, you're starting to declutter what you've built up with them.
Right.
So commonalities are very important, saying whatever it could be, every person wants to be valued. That's the thing. They want to be valued, and people can feel that you're valuing them when you take a personal interest in something about them.
Absolutely.
And people forget that.
On Zoom, but that's just in real life anyway. If we were at dinner or wherever else, we're going to connect more when we can share the yeses and we can laugh and we can find
shared yeses
what do
is
we
a
have
good
in common.
answer.
Yeah.
And when you said about, giving them acknowledgement, and talked about the head nod. Now, I don't know if I can do it because I got a Botox shot, but I think it was 6 months ago. Is an eyebrow raise. You see, you just did eyebrow raise. Am I doing one?
You are doing it.
Oh, I'm glad I can do one. But eyebrow raises are good. It's like, I acknowledge you, I see you. One eyebrow raise, which I cannot do that, would be that I'm skeptical of you.
Yeah. So I heard you mention several times about being in the courtroom. Talk to us about that, because I know a lot of your career you spend in the courtroom.
Right.
And are you tell us about that, because I think it's always fascinating that you're there as the lady to determine, is he lying or not?
Right. So there's 2 things that I mainly work on. One would be witness preparation.
Okay.
Let's say you have a witness who's on trial for something terrible, but you still want your witness to come across as credible and likable, because you're working with that jury, and if the jury likes you, more than likely they may not think that you are guilty. So we teach them gestures of honesty, but I never want to work on a case and teach someone a gesture of honesty if I did not feel the person was being honest.
Exactly.
So I would only take one and work my way if I really felt concrete about that. So that's one part of the whole business of what I do. And then the second big part is jury selection. So let's say we're having a trial and we have a jury here, we have 12 jurors, we have 35, 40 people we're picking from. What happens is that the attorney is asking these possible jurors questions, but I'm simply there to watch the body language of each possible juror. And what I do is that I have a grid. I have a grid 1 through 8, because they're normally seated 1 through 8, 9 through 16. And if he's asking a question of number 32, and you ask her something, I can make some notes right then. She hates you, she's doing this, she's doing this. So in the afternoon, when the attorney talks with me, he says, Jan, what about number 32? I like her. And I say, you need to scratch her off because she hates you. So but attorneys are really good about reading people, I think, because they've had a lot of experience in it too. But my job is solely to just zero in on what their body language is doing and then report that to attorneys. What I find that I'm probably best at, people ask me questions, they interview me, maybe I do a TV show, but I think I'm better at when they ask me to just zero in on one person. Because if I'm on stage, I'm thinking, does this person like me? Am I doing a good job? So I'm more worried about that while I'm teaching the body language. But if I just can look at one person, I can look maybe at video over and over again, that's when I can take everything I've ever learned, it seems, comes into one little aspect, and I can see every part of their behavior there. So I looked at Meghan Markle's body language during
her interview.
Yes, I did.
And are you able to share what you think about that?
Well, there are a few instances I think that there are some non-truths.
Okay.
Yeah, there were several non-truths that I saw there, but it was interesting to watch that. And we also study sentence formation.
Yes.
So when someone forms a sentence where inside that sentence there's a present tense and past tense in one sentence, usually there's some inconsistencies with her story there. Bill Clinton did that same thing too. They might say something in the present tense and something in the past tense in that very same five-worded sentence. So that's something that's called sentence construction analysis. So when we're looking at them, we're watching that, we're looking at the eyes, we're looking at her hands, I also had done Casey Anthony's body language. Remember Casey Anthony in Florida, the lady with the baby missing? Casey was a constant groomer. She was always doing this. Am I pretty enough for Jose Baez? Was her thing,
No, but is that something that was at her baseline that you talked about, or was that something that she just sort of added on?
That could have been part of her baseline. She was really smug, but she more so did it when she was closer to Jose Baez. But in the cases that I've worked on, I can think of one here in Houston, and I won't say too much about it, but it was a young man accused of killing someone who had come into their place of business because he felt threatened, the young man. So, they had attorneys representing him. And when it happened, there was a camera behind him. But the camera did not have sound. So the camera we could not see him, but we could see the intruder come in and talk with him for a few minutes. And so they thought, at first they hired a lip reader because they wanted to see if this little guy felt threatened enough that he could defend his own self. So the lip reader, though, could not read the lips of the guy. So then they hired me to see his body language, to see how threatening his body language was. And did this young guy have a defense to stand for in court? But when I look at it, I don't look at it as saying, yes, he's threatening or not, he's not threatening. I will make a list of threatening behaviors and non-threatening behaviors. And every time I see a threatening one, I'll write it down, I'll write it down, I'll write it down. If I see non-threatening ones, I write it down. Then I bring that to the attorney.
Yes.
I might have 19 non-threatening behaviors and 22 threatening behaviors. And then the attorney can make a judgment from there because I don't want to be responsible for someone's life.
So you're not making the call.
No.
You're just writing the data.
Correct.
This is what I see. This is what's going on. And you make the determination.
Like if I'd say to you, Clarinda, put your right hand up, pretend you're in the courtroom saying, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth. So that's how your hand would be if you had to go into the courtroom. So just freeze it for a second because there are 5 things that people do with their hands.
Okay.
Some do like you and I are doing, the fingers are wide apart. Some put their fingers tight together when they're saying, I promise to tell the truth. Some people bend their fingers forward a little bit and they'll say, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth. Some people keep 3 fingers together and 2 fingers together, apart, they're like this. And then some people kind of casually lean the hand backwards and say it. So the 5 behaviors are, when someone's like this, tense, the fingers wide apart, usually they're terrified and they will tell us the whole truth. So you and I are that way. We're like, girl, you
get me out of here. I don't want to
ask me anything and I'll tell you. So people who are like this, it's called an analytical honesty. Okay. They'll tell us the truth, but we'll have to pull it out of them because look, they're tight if the hand is straight up. So this one too, the hand is straight up, this one the hand is straight up. Now this one, it's bent forward. People who bend the fingers forward just a bit when they're in the courtroom saying this typically will lie to us.
Oh, wow.
So when I did Bill Clinton's, this is how Bill said when he was doing the Monica Lewinsky testimony, and that show is coming on this week. It'll be a series. Oh my goodness. Starts I think Wednesday. So he started this way. People who do this, they're toughest to deal with because some things you'll have to pull out and some things they'll blurt.
Oh my gosh.
And then people who do this, it's like they're going to try to bend over backwards and get you to believe them, but will be telling you a lie. So the first speaker, so going back to the politician, so when I did Bill's, he was like this. And I said,
so this is how he started off with
like
the
this.
So you knew off the top, oh,
yeah, I said, this is not going to be a good.
This is not going well.
Yeah. And two, when he would gesture, you know, like usually when we're talking, I'll gesture towards you. So he said like this, he would gesture, did not have sexual relations with that woman. And when someone wants to be disassociated from a crime, they will not say the person's name. It wouldn't say Monica Lewinsky, he would say with that woman. Just like, you know, there was a young man a couple of years ago in Colorado, 2 children and a wife were missing, you know, and so he was being interviewed on his porch at his home, and so he's like this, and he's like, I just want them to come home, and then he starts doing this. Well, once the woman was found, she was strangled. So you see the body language tells what's going on inside their mind, and he wouldn't use her name. Or any crime, they'll say that woman, that young lady, instead of saying
So
Susan.
is that part of that, the
kind of to dissociate themselves from the actual crime that they would have done. So then from Bill Clinton, it went on to every one of them that you can think of. So I did Donald Trump's body language, he was really tough to read because he did some gestures we had never really seen. You know, he did a lot of this, but he did it 2 times. So one is like, hey, everything's okay. 2 means you are a 0. So I would never do 2. You know, you got to just do 1 if you're going to do something. And his gestures, which I can tell you this from gestures, people look more confident when their gestures are fluid. You see my gestures kind of move like this? So people who are uncomfortable and want to really control you will do sharp. See, like this? So his gestures were like this. And then he would do this. You used to remember he would do this? Now, we had never seen this except, I hate to say where, in a mental hospital. We would see the patients try to portray like a gun or something of that sort. That was the only research, when we researched this gesture, that we had ever seen of someone doing this gesture. And he is a fanner, you know, his hands will do here. It usually means that they have deeper meaning to what they're saying. You know, you remember he would do this, if you remember this. Sort of tight, like this, body was tight. And the tighter you are to your body, the less comfortable you are. Because size of space you need around you dictates to another how powerful you feel you are. So someone in a meeting sitting like this, as opposed to someone in a meeting sitting like this. So that's why when I coach women, I say in a meeting, you can't stay like this because you look weak, you look non-confrontational. You have to, like when Oprah interviews, she might have an arm on her shoulders on the chair saying, I'm the one in charge of this interview, so therefore, so in a business setting too, we can let others know how powerful we are by even spreading our books out further, putting the shoulders back, sitting. So with him, when you're like this, it's like when you'd be cold. So he was like this, but yet tried to expand on this, this way. So it was interesting to watch that. And even when he had did the talks with Hillary, remember when he and Hillary were running against each other, and he would kind of pounce on her from the back. Now Hillary was a good one to study because Hillary is so schooled in nonverbal, and she and Bill are both trained in something called full body listening. And full body listening, which you do it already really well, is that when you're in a conversation with someone, you feel there's no one else in the room but you and them. So it's a training that people do, and what it is, it's just nonverbal, being fully there, nodding your head, giving them good eye contact. We all do that, but they have done it to the extreme that even if they're in a meeting and they're talking with you and someone touches their shoulder, they will never look at this. They're still right there.
Still locked in.
So then that's why when you leave them, you think, wow, that's the nicest person I ever spoke with. And we can do that. We can do, if you're sincere, you probably do it naturally.
I don't know if this is in the camera. I meant to give you this so we can have a shot of this.
It says Jan.
It says just my 2 cents on the others.
No.
Yeah, you said something. I love it. And I was like, yeah.
And look what I have for you.
Well, look at this. We're exchanging gifts. Thank you.
Here. To put my name on it. This will be my morning coffee cup every morning.
Cheers.
Oh, whiskey and wine. I love it. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you for my
Because it's very thoughtful. You had to plan ahead, my darling friend.
I did, sort of, kind of, just a little bit.
I love
it. Okay, Jane, so you mentioned that our body language reflects the way that we feel about ourselves. Is that correct?
Right.
Can you explain on that?
Well, so if you're coming into a room and you're uncomfortable,
Yes.
it's going to really show up in your body language. If you come into a room and you're really confident, it's going to show up in your body language. But I just wanted to mention something about first impressions.
Yes.
Within the first 2 to 7 seconds of someone seeing you, they get their impression of you and they say, oh, I like that person, I trust that person, I want to listen to that person. So that's how fast it's made. And it takes only 4 minutes to get a lasting impression that someone will probably never change it.
Goodness. So it takes, by 7 seconds, I know if I like you or not.
Right.
And by 4 minutes, we're connected.
By 4 minutes, if you liked me, you're going to always like me.
Yes.
If you didn't like me, you're going to never like me.
I want to ask you also about, I'm an introvert, okay? So when I
Yes.
think about us introverts, how
Yeah.
can we go about and being cognizant of our body language to still show that we're confident and we're present and we like you, but we just may not want to, be engaging in a conversation.
Correct, and I know that about you, which is good though. But you have forced yourself to come out of that by doing a show like this, by doing presenting yourself for your dissertation. Which it's a struggle for you. So for someone who's an introvert, it does not come easy. Yes. I'm an extrovert, so being a teacher is. Thank goodness I chose a career of speaking because I could have. But for someone who's an introvert, it's a push every day. Yes. It's a push every day, and it's a little bit of a struggle. But I think that once someone sees the steadiness in you, because you don't want to be pushy like this. You want to just kind of stay your ground. And I notice that you're an observer because I've seen you around at parties and you're going to look at everybody first and then kind of figure out who maybe you might feel safe going to talk with, which is the better way to be, because I'll just blurt out and probably talk to someone, But it's been good in your life. You've been successful the way you are, correct? So never change the way you are. That way you will always come across to others as really genuine. Because if you try as an introvert to come across too extroverted, it's going to be too much stress and strain on you. But I think by the way that you always hold your chin up, I've noticed that about you, they know you may be an extrovert, but you're not an introvert, but you're not introverted. Right. You're like this. Yeah. So that's a big difference. So if you think about it, when you're in the presence of someone, even though you're quiet, the way that you put your stature, the way that you put yourself on your shoulders, you give that aura of authority, even though you're not knowing that you're giving the aura of authority.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, we're about to wrap it up for the day, and I just want to say thank you.
You're
but
welcome.
Before we close, I would love, there's someone out there watching saying, oh my goodness, I need to get a hold of that Jan because she's amazing and she's super cute. First of all, can we just say yes for Jan in the outfit?
Yes for the dress.
I've known Jan for some time now, and she is always in pink. She's in pink and
Love
black.
Pink. Love me some pink.
And I just think she is just the most sharpest little thing ever. And I just think that you're amazing. Your little pink frames.
Pink frames, everything. So the way that they can get in touch with me, my website is just my name. It's janhargrave.com, Hargrave, not Hargrove. And on my site, I wrote 5 books in body language, and they can get the books there. And I have an online course now. So if someone's interested in learning everything they need to learn about body language, all they need to do is sign up for the course.
Oh, I love
then
it.
they have me. It's a 13 modules. That was a lot of work to do. I did that before COVID, but it was beneficial during COVID because people could take the course.
Yes.
So one of my books, my first book is Let Me See Your Body Talk. So that's body language job interview, body language presentation. You like the name of that book?
I love that. I started, let me see your body talk. Okay.
Olivia Newton-John's was Let Me Hear Your Body Talk. Mine's Let Me See, but I love it. All my books have fun names. So Let Me See Your Body Talk is number 1. Number 2 is Judge the Jury, and that's how to read jurors and how to read witnesses and how to spot liars. So that's Judge the Jury. Number 3 is the fun one called Free Way of Love, and that's signs that men and women do that say, oh, baby, get over here. And that's the one I would do with Steve Harvey when I did Steve's show a lot. We do a show on how do you tell if he likes you or how to tell if she likes you. So that's Free Way of Love. And then the one called Strictly Business Body Language is probably the best for business people because and the great thing about book number 4, it's filled with pictures. It took me 4 books to write in body language to figure out I needed to put a lot of pictures. Yeah. So this has pictures of people sitting all kinds of different ways, and then underneath there it explains it. So and I did put a chapter on cultural body language because we didn't talk about that, but there is a cultural body language where some gestures we do in U.S. are really not acceptable in other
elsewhere.
Correct. Yes. So that one. Then my last book is poker face, the body language of poker players.
Oh,
not
so
that I'm a
going
gambler.
to Vegas, we need to get it.
Need to get it. So yeah, I still love what I do.
So before we leave, if you could think of your top 2 cents to share with the viewers, things that you think are important that they need to know with body language.
Okay, I guess my top 2 cents are just keep in mind the wording, actions speak louder than words. So when you're going to come into contact with someone, as much as you can, you got to make them feel desired, you got to make them feel wanted, you got to make them feel that you're really present in the conversation. When you're doing that, you're creating an awareness of them and an awareness of yourself. So I guess, in 2 cents, you cannot just live life in a fog.
Yes.
You have to, and I think everyone wants to better themselves. Everyone wants to learn some new things, because the more we learn, the more ammunition we have. So why not learn some things about body language? And to first of all understand, what does your body language signify the moment that people see you? Because I can teach it to you and you can read someone else, but always keep in mind when they're first looking at me, how am I coming across to them? Am I coming across stuck up? Am I coming across friendly? Is my smile genuine? Yeah. So I guess you have to always keep that in mind. So just little things I think that we just need to be aware of with nonverbal, but that actions speak louder than words. You're always on show when you're out in public. When you're at home, you're not. But still, you can learn to read your spouse, you can learn to read your children. But I think when we're out in public, if you really want to accomplish something for yourself in life, you have to realize that people are watching you and people are gauging you. And people would not hire anyone they did not trust. So if they feel that they can trust you, I don't think there's going to be much success if you're a salesman in real estate, if you're a salesman in insurance. If your customer does not trust you, they probably will not purchase from you. And the way to get them to trust you is you got to use that body language. You have to, even verbal mirroring is that, let's say you're talking about your children, and I come back in my next sentence, I say your kids. Now that's not a word that you use, so that's not favorable to you. I need to use the word that you use when you were describing your offspring.
Compliment them, what they
said, so if you can pick up some words that your client is using and use those words back on them, because people like people who are like them. Whether it's that I'm mirroring some of your body language or I'm mirroring some of the words even that you're using.
Absolutely. All right, so
Is it good,
I'm
guys?
going to give you a hug.
I'm beginning to perspire. I was like, let me take off this damn jacket.